My absolute favorite quote from the late great naturalist John Muir: "The best way to see the universe, look into a forest wilderness." You're traveling through the Beam Canal, one of the largest fjords in Misty Fjords National Monument, and that takes you up through the beautiful Peabody Mountain Range, which at certain times of year can be snow-capped and beautiful. Takes you past New Eddystone Rock, really interesting volcanic vent that sticks right up out of the middle of the Beam Canal. And then you get to Rudyard Bay, which is the jewel of Misty Fjords. 3,000-foot cliffs sticking right up out of the ocean that descend again for another 1,000 feet beneath us. All of this beautiful rock formations carved by glaciers. It was designated as a national monument in 1978, and that's a presidential designation by President Carter. 2 years later, 1980, Congress gives Misty Fjords extra protection by making it a wilderness area. And that means that the land is completely untrammeled by man. It's very pristine. There's hardly any signs of people or life. Really cool. It is that aha moment that people have when they turn the corner into Rudyard Bay. They look up at Punch Bowl Wall. It's so magnificent and spectacular that it takes their breath away, and that's why I keep coming back every year to work this tour. There's nothing like seeing somebody see Misty Fjords for the first time. And I love teaching people about the plants, the animals, the geology, the cultural history. Everything's just so rich that it makes it all worthwhile. To me, Alaska is one of the last places on Earth where people can go and visit, and the next people to visit won't know they're there. It's one of the last real untouched wildernesses, and there's just nothing quite like it anywhere else.
Totem State Park is a park where in the 1930s the WPA came through, hired master carvers to go out to the outlying islands, carve reproductions of the totem poles that were out on these outer islands that were being lost to decay and through just deterioration, brought those poles back over to the state park and put them on display for everybody so that they can see these poles too. A lot of people used to think that a totem pole was something that was a religious icon for the natives here, and that's simply not true. They were never worshipped, but they serve great purpose, actually. And there are 5 different types of poles that they have. You have mortuary memorial poles, which are when somebody dies. You have story poles, and that's how we pass on stories from generation to generation. You have totem support poles that are in the clan houses holding up the big overhead beams that we had. On the front, you have the totem entrance poles, which are what bring you into a clan house through the opening or the hole that's in the door of the pole. And then finally you have the shame and ridicule poles. On the front of the clan house, you have a pole that's also going to tell people coming by in their canoes or their boats out front, it tells them who lives there. You look at the moiety, and then you look at what clans belong to the mother of that house, so that you would know as you're going by, are these my friends? Can I stop and get a meal or spend the night? Or are these my enemies? Should I keep quiet and keep going so I don't get hurt? It's a way of communicating for them, and it seems to work real well. It's still a culture that's very much into the idea of bringing their history with them as they progress forward. When they begin carving a pole, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to let it all cure out. They're going to come up with a drawing, a diagram of what they agree to. And it was very important to be accurate on carving this pole, because once the contract is made between the carver and the person they're carving for in the olden times, then a master carver, once he delivered the pole, if it didn't tell the story that they had contracted, he was put to death. So it was extremely important to get your job right. And basically, it's a contract. Once you start carving, it takes you about 1 week to carve 1 foot on a pole, and you decide how long the pole is going to be before you ever start carving. You decide how much of it's going to go into the ground. Nowadays, we try not to put them in the ground. I think that anybody who can appreciate history would feel like this would be something that was important. When I was young, I had no appreciation of history whatsoever. And as I've gotten older and as I've studied more, I have become more fascinated by history, that there are so many lessons to be learned, and it's the things that we learn from cultures like this that help us to know about stuff. I love getting a chance to show off a place that I think is the most beautiful place in the world.
my name's Captain David. I've had 4 Bering Sea king crab boats. One of those boats, the Aleutian Ballad, was on the TV show Deadliest Catch on season 2. And this is where we get to take you out with us in Ketchikan, Alaska, to go show you the fascination of all that stuff that lived in the water and bring it to you, pull it out, king crab pots that weigh 700 pounds, we'll get octopus. Quite often, what I like to tell people is, you know, there's 100 times more life in that water than you'll see on the land. And when you come out with us in Ketchikan, you're going to see both. You'll see things above the water you never thought you'd see. There might be whales, there might be sea lions, seals, eagles galore, whatever it is. There may be other fishermen like these guys out here. They've got their nets in the water. They're pulling together about 20 to 30,000 pounds of salmon. We'll pull next to that net. And we'll hand them candy bars off of the bow of this boat. That's how close we get to these guys. So the opportunities are endless. A lot of people say, what am I going to see? I don't know. I do know one thing. You're going to see something, and that's Alaska. So as a fisherman, I fished up here in Alaska for about 10 years. And one day, a friend of mine brought a piece of paper down to my boat. He said, look at that. And there's a paragraph that said, if you do not have a Bering Sea crab boat fishing by January of 1992, you will not get a king crab license. And it was 1991. And that was the motivation for me to build a king crab boat and go to the Bering Sea, because I had never been to the Bering Sea before that day. But when somebody tells you you can't do it for the rest of your life, you get kind of nervous. And that shoved me into the Bering Sea. I ended up owning 4 crab boats. I've fished everywhere from California to the Russian border, and we were off to the races.
There's a few bugs. Now there are several different styles of crab pots that are utilized. And this is one of them. This is what we call a cone pot or a dome pot, simply because it's shaped like a cone. Now the way it's going to work, a pot like this, it's going to sit on the bottom, just like you see it sitting in the launcher here. You're going to hang the bait up on the inside of this webbing, 4 or 5 bait jars, and then these crabs are going to smell that bait. They're going to make their way to the pot, and they will crawl up the outside and go right in the tunnel, which is the entry point, right on top of this pot. That's how they get in. Once they drop in, we've got them. This is snow crab right here in my right hand. In my left hand, this is the box crab.
We'll have eagles very often flying 5 to 10 feet away from the boat to grab fish off the top of the water, and sometimes 50 to 100. It will blow you away. It's a great day and catch you can.
Holy cow, pull hard, she'll come easy. There we go, there's some king crab. And there's the big pot. Now this is the crab pot you folks that watch the show are familiar with. And this one right here, I mean, this is the workhorse of the Bering Sea. There's more pots of this size and style out there than any other. Now this is what we call a 6.5 by, simply because of its dimensions. It is 6.5 feet by 6.5 feet. Now they do make them much larger. They make them 7 by 7s, 8 by 8s. I've actually seen crab pots that were 10 feet by 10 feet. Now this pot right here weighs 750 pounds. Once we've got that panel ready to go, up she comes. We bring that thing back down. And now the crew's gonna move in.
What separates the Bering Sea Crab Fisherman's Tour from other excursions, it is that we're not tour guides. We're real fishermen that live the life. Every man that steps on the deck of that boat and shares his stories, shares his life passion, is a real fisherman. And believe it or not, you're not tourists. You're real people. Everybody has a story. By the time you walk off of that boat, we're family. That's a big difference. Because that's what I want on a vacation, right? I'm going to treat you like family. We get 10 times more back from the guests than we ever give them. we'd get 10 times more back, and we give it all.
It's well known basically because of its accessibility. People are able to fly into the airport and drive all of 10 miles and see something so magnificent that you are not able to see in other parts of this country. It's mind-blowing to me. I'm from Georgia, and we don't have mountains. We don't have mountains with snow tops on them. We don't have glaciers, or even an ocean nearby. So for me, it's breathtaking and just glorious to live in this environment, to live in a habitat that has diverse animals and salmon and bears and everything that is just all connected, and it makes you want to come back over and over again. Just growing up, I'd always dreamt of working in some type of national forest or a national park where I can talk to visitors and just express my passion for wildlife and for just different habitats and ecosystems. So I came here just out of chance and out of luck as an intern, and I was graciously invited to come back again. So during the winter time, the waterfall will slow down just because of the colder climate and temperatures. But as the summer progresses, more snowmelt happens and more rainfall will occur, and therefore it's a stronger amount to flow and more impressive, and it draws visitors to the waterfall. Yeah, so the accessibility about Juneau is why I enjoy coming back here. You're able to bike for 30 minutes and go to an ocean. You're able to walk 5 minutes and climb a mountain. And there's just so much recreation and so much natural wonder here.
Gastineau Mill was in operation from 1914 to 1921. It was a very short-lived mill, but it was a mill very far ahead of its time as far as technology and stuff went. While this mill was in operation, they removed 500,000 ounces of gold from the mine. This mine had a recovery rate of 90% for the gold that they mined, and that's an incredibly high rate, especially considering how low the quality of the ore in the mountain was. It took 16 tons of ore to get a single ounce of gold, so that's like trading 16 elephants for gold the size of my pinky finger. Today, there are 2 mines operating out of the Juneau area, the Kensington and the Greens Creek. They have a recovery rate of 98%. And that is with all the modern technology. And so this mill, operating 100 years ago, had a recovery rate only 8% behind what they have now.
What you want to do is get some water in your pan and shake it side to side. You want to get all that dirt moving around so that if you have any gold, it will all sink to the very bottom of your pan. And after you do that for a few seconds, you're going to tilt your pan in front of you just so that that water runs off. You want to keep your pan at that angle and just kind of brush it through the water so that that first layer of sand washes off, kind of like waves on a beach. The water will take it off.
Why? I mean, Alaska is a smorgasbord, right? The whales are coming here to just gorge on food. So they've been starving themselves for months, like 6 months plus, while they were in the tropics. Now they're heading to Alaska, they're heading up to the Arctic Circle because there's this ginormous bloom of krill, of herring, and anchovies. So the great whales are coming here to pig out. Orcas are a dolphin, but of course dolphins are a type of whale as well. And they are called orcas or killer whales because in Spanish the name meant whale killers. So the fishermen who named them saw them kill other whales. They saw them kill the baleen whales. Why do whales breach? And we actually don't know why whales breach. It's thought that perhaps they breach because they can, because it's fun in the same way that we like to play. Sometimes the males will jump as a sign of dominance to show the other males, hey, I'm here, I'm bigger than you, back off. Sometimes they'll jump, it's thought perhaps to get rid of the barnacles that are on their body and just kind of like, oh, get that off of me, because it weighs them down. So all of these different reasons that whales breach. One really incredible thing about the resident orcas is that orca societies, resident orca societies, are matrilineal. That means that it's the female that runs the society. Of course, orcas are deadbeat fathers, but they're terrific uncles. So an orca male will go off and breed with another female in a different pod and then come back to his matrilineal pod and stay there and then help his sisters take care of their calves. That's a way of looking at those pods. When you see the pods, when you see the male, the females, you're looking at the most tightly knit society on the planet. Even now, no matter, I've seen whales for 20 years, and I've been working with whales for almost 20 years, and I just, every time, just, get all teary-eyed.
I've always loved trains. I grew up in New York City, one out my window, but this is probably one of the best in the world.
We are the largest tourist attraction or excursion in Skagway for many reasons. My feeling is that it's the biggest excursion because we have so much to offer to all folks. All young and elderly folks enjoyed this ride. It's a nice, beautiful ride up the mountain that teaches them what the gold rush was all about. We're called the Gateway to the Klondike.
This train was built really to haul gold back from the gold fields. It was probably 500 miles from here in the Klondike where they found the gold. Of course, the miners went up there. There were no trains when they first went out there. The British financiers, the Close brothers, realized that a train going through the White Pass would probably be pretty profitable. And sure enough, it paid itself off in 1 year, hauling miners and gold back down.
And when you come here, you can feel a sense of that gold rush still here. I feel like there's a lot of just natural beauty and history that just goes home with you, and you take that with you.
The best gold we have now are our passengers. We really take good care of them. They took good care of us. We typically haul 400,000 people a year in a 4 to 4.5 month season. Skagway, this little town that's 5 blocks wide and 20 blocks long, thanks to the ships, probably sees close to 1 million people just in the summer.
Favorite part is both the history and the beautiful views that they see. Lake Summit behind us is one of their favorite spots as well, in the tunnels that we go through, and then Glacier Gorge, of course, when we go over our wooden trestle bridge.
The views are just breathtaking, whether it's going around a curve and seeing the whole train, or seeing all the way back to Skagway, 17 miles from Inspiration Point, going through mountain passes, and the wildlife. We often see bears, we can see goats, and people are just blown away. My favorite part of the job is not just getting some physical fitness in, but it's the people. It's like I have the university of the world here. I get people coming from all over, doing some of the most interesting things that I've never seen in one place. I mean, we have the world coming to Skagway, and they get on this train. Just today, in fact, we had a couple propose on our train, and she accepted.
It just will bring your heart happiness, because it's so amazing, and the natural beautiness of it that has not been touched. Nothing's been touched up here other than the train and the history of the train.
This was a town of 20,000 people. I mean, with 4 big ships in Skagway, there aren't even 15,000 in town. You know, we can handle this. This is what it was. It's the real thing. This is what it was like in '98 during the gold rush. Skagway, Alaska is the only town from the gold rush era in Alaska and the Yukon that never burned down. I mean, Dawson City burned down twice, Fairbanks burned down 3 times, I think Nome burned down 3 times. Atlin, British Columbia burned 5 times. Only Skagway was transported from the turn of the century intact with over 100 historic structures from the gold rush era. You know, individual buildings were lost to fire, but not the whole town. So because of that, I mean, Skagway is actually, you know, a National Historic Site. It's the Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park. I mean, it looks like a movie set. And as I say, 100 of the structures that you see in the downtown area are the real thing. That's the kind of town that Skagway is. It's a very small little place, but it had a huge boomtown story back in 1898. Skagway is a place where, to this day, you walk on the wooden boardwalks, you hear the honky-tonk piano music coming out of the saloons, you see the gals waving from upstairs in what used to be a bordello years ago, and it really brings an awful lot of feel to life. Hiram and the town is real. It's not some candy-coated dance hall dream that's been ginned up. It's the real thing. It's where it really happened. And that's one of the most interesting things to me about the town is I'm here to see what happens next.
I tell people this all the time, that I work with people that come up to Alaska to go on an adventure, and I get to deliver them to that. This is an actual adventure. So we take you down on these boats and we take you about an hour and a half out to the glacier. We go past waterfalls, we go past, I mean, the mountains just look gorgeous today, and you get mist going over the mountains.
After we take the bus, we end up at our pavilion. We put all our gear on, whether that's just boots and a life jacket or it's full rain gear. We get you geared up for the experience that we think you're going to have that day. For that point, it's about a quarter-mile walk down to our pavilion over into a temperate rainforest. You make your way down and you're at the put-in. We've got our 31-foot canoes, 12-seaters, nice ones, good ones. We've got a little motor on the back, so we do a little bit of paddling to get out, especially this late in the season when the water's high. After that, we make our way down the river, across the lake, and from that point, it's anybody's game. Typically, we're aiming towards the ice. Currently, what we're seeing right now is about an additional quarter-mile hike across the delta towards the ice, and that is on loose cobble. So it's definitely not an easy trip for everybody, but we try and provide you with the gear that we have, and that can change. That frequently does. Only thing consistent with glaciers is change. So from the accumulation zone, where that snow really isn't melting, all the way down to where we're seeing it today, it's about 7 to 8 miles long. After that, the lake, it's about 55 feet deep. It's named after George Davidson, who was a surveyor up in the area when the Coastal Survey came up here with William H. Seward to kind of map out Alaska and show Americans what exactly they had bought from the Russians. And obviously he did an admirable enough job that they named a glacier after him. The water is very drinkable. If we are able to get water off of the glacier, it's great.
You get to go on the same awesome experience. You get to see the exact same thing that these explorers came up, and that's what I like to talk about. I like to talk about the first explorers that came up here, the surveyors, the George Davidson, who the Davidson Glacier is named after. So it's cool because we get to, point out like that is the Davidson Glacier. When George Davidson himself came up here, this is what he would have seen. This is what the early explorers would have seen.
My favorite part is showing people who have never seen something like that before, seeing that moment when they just get it, when they're standing at the glacier, whether they're on the delta or they make it all the way up to the ice, wherever they're at, you get to see one of the most amazing geological phenomena in the world, and it's an incredible sight to see someone see that for the first time. I love it.
I can't describe Butchart Gardens in one word because it's color, it's family, and it's people. Butchart Gardens started off as a cement factory back in the early 1900s. Mr. Butchart came from Owen Sound, Ontario, hearing there was good limestone deposits here. So he set up a cement factory because the West was just expanding and the West needed cement. So he came out early and started that, and his family came out later and they established their home here. And once the limestone quarry was worked out, Mrs. Butchart took it upon herself to start beautifying this grass. And this garden that you see here, all the ivy that you see on the walls is hand planted by her. So she just turned this back into something that was beautiful, that wasn't just the worked out pit that she would have to live next to. The gardens are changing constantly throughout the year, so one display might be different from year to year, so it's always constantly changing, so it's nice knowing that I have an office that's constantly in movement. Behind me, we're at the Sunken Garden. Back when Mr. Butchart ran his cement factory, it was a limestone quarry, and once that was exhausted, Mrs. Butchart took it upon herself to beautify it and plant all the flowers that you see here. We have about 50 full-time gardeners, and that goes up to about 70 in the summer months. And they do most of their work from about 6 until 9 in the morning, Monday to Friday. The first time I walked around the Butchart Gardens, I was overwhelmed. It was quite beautiful, and I had never seen quite anything like this in my entire life. Rhododendrons in the summertime, a lot of tulips in the spring, a lot of fuchsias, some Japanese maples along the walkway. I feel proud that it's, when people mention Victoria, I automatically think of this Butchart Gardens. And when they think of the Butchart Gardens, it automatically means Victoria as well. So.